Hello, and welcome to Insurance Agents Talk Shop. I'm your host, Doug Coombs, Chief Marketing Officer at SIAA. Today's episode is laying the groundwork for a powerful digital strategy, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Kara Shottis. Kara, will you, first of all, thank you and for joining us today. Also, I want to make sure I note that Kara is the marketing director at Code and Color. So that means there are two things we need to understand, Kara. What do you do, and what is Code and Color?
Well, thank you for having me, Doug. I'm super excited to be here. When you reached out and talked about this, I was so excited because I feel like just one of my personal passion projects is just talking about digital strategy. And so to be able to sit and talk about it for a little bit with you guys this morning is really exciting. But yeah, my name is Kara Shottis. I, like you said, I'm the marketing director over at Code and Color. And goodness, a little bit about me. I am based out in Kingsport, Tennessee. So I'm a little rural gal. But have been connected into the digital world for a long time and been really excited about what the digital landscape has to offer in terms of connecting us all, no matter where we are or what we do. So yeah, I came on with Code and Color about 3 years ago, and I, like I say, oversee all of their digital marketing. Code and Color really specifically is a website and digital marketing agency, right? So we work with very specific clients across a lot of industries. About 60 to 70% of our customers are in the insurance industry. So that is our bread and butter, but we do custom work outside of that as well. But Code and Color does custom website design. They do mobile app design. Oh goodness, what else do we do? We do logo design work, other graphic designs. We run social media management. We do pay-per-click advertisement, so Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those different landscapes as well. So yeah, really day in, day out, we're working with clients to be able to handle some of their digital marketing needs. And I would say just, at the start of this podcast, one of our biggest focuses is really making sure that we are a partner for our clients, right? So there's a lot of agencies that are just say, hey, you want a website? Here's a website, right? But we want to talk with our clients, and we do talk with our clients a lot about how that website fits into the rest of their digital strategy and what they're trying to do on a larger term scale. So that's Code and Color in a nutshell. There's other people in our company that could probably explain it so much better than me, but that's what I got at early in the
It's good. No, it's good. And it lays the groundwork because, we're going to delve into the significance of having a strong online presence. We're going to talk about the role of the website and also navigating social media. So based on what you just described, we're in pretty good shape or pretty good hands to have this conversation. So, some of what I want to talk about as we get into this is also that overall digital persona and how folks should nurture it, right? And so we can talk about some of the common digital misconceptions, if you will, and provide ways to for folks to keep their insurance agencies at the forefront, especially as things continue to change in this digital world. But let me first start off, if I may, Kara, by asking you, with information flooding us from all directions, how does a business determine or insurance agent determine what they really need in terms of an online presence?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Is there's a million things you can do, and where do you start and what do you do? And I think, really my biggest advice for a lot of people is start researching your direct competition and figure out what they do. And at the very minimum, at least do that, right? Be on the same platforms that your competition is on, and be, focusing on similar channels that they're focusing on as well. Outside of that, I mean, that's a really broad and easy answer, right? But just do your research. My biggest thing I feel like overall is figure out what you can maintain at a good quality level and start there, right? You can always add things to your digital marketing landscape, right? And your strategy. You can always add more channels and do more stuff, right? We all know there's more ways we can be online and increasing. But you have, as an agency owner, or if you work in an agency, right, like you have a very limited number of hours in your day that you can put towards marketing and digital. And so figuring out what makes sense for you and what you can do well and just doing that. Outside of that, once you've determined that, I think really focusing on what on focusing on channels that are going to bring value back to your agency, right? So what are things that your prospects are on? What are things that will help you cross-sell to existing customers? Those kinds of conversations and questions are really helpful in determining what actually makes sense for you and for your agency.
So that's interesting as you talk about it. You're talking about kind of stepping down and getting into the weeds, getting into the basics. And I'm thinking about the fact that there's this IA Evolve conference coming up, and a lot of conversations going to be, I'm sure, on artificial intelligence, AI. And I still think that there's a real need on behalf of most small business owners to focus on that basic structure of their online presence. And so as I hear you talking about, going out there, kind of surveying the landscape and seeing what the competition is doing and what kind of platforms they're using, et cetera, those are in fact essential steps to take. Even in a world where we're talking about Chat GPT and whatever else there might be in terms of AI. And so I just want to stress that and be upfront about that with our audience, that, this is not a conversation for folks who want to get into talking about, how do you program in an AI world, that sort of thing, but rather about how you make sure that you have a well-founded, well-placed online strategy and digital tools. And
Yes.
so you've kind of kicked us off in a good way on that, Kara, and I appreciate it. But I would like to ask you the question that as we talk about that, establishing that online presence, are we at the point now where that online presence has actually surpassed the brick and mortar store in terms of, what's more important for your storefront itself?
Oh man. For me, yes, 100%. Right. I think we've surpassed that. That's not to say that your brick and mortar is not important, right? It is super important. And especially if you're in smaller communities, that brick and mortar makes much more big of a difference. Right. But I mean, if you're an agency owner, right, and you stopped and thought about how many times in the last year somebody just wandered in through your door and asked to purchase a product from you, right? Like it just is pretty rare, right? Even tangible products, right? Like even like, your online boutiques, right? Like when I haven't bought a t-shirt inside of a store, a brick and mortar store in a year, right? I've bought all of my t-shirts online, right? So why would I expect to buy something that's less? I don't need to try on insurance, right? I should try on t-shirts, right? I don't need to try on insurance. So what's the reason and the motivation as a consumer to even walk into your brick and mortar, right? So I think some of those things are dwindling. The other piece of the digital is connecting, just the internet at large, right? Is connecting us faster and to more specific people than it ever has before, right? So because I work a job and I have to get groceries and pick up my kid from school and then go to soccer practice, like I've got a bunch of things in the day as a consumer. So I don't have time to take my lunch break and drive down to an insurance agency and ask them for coverage or ask them a specific question. I'm just going to Google it, right? And I'm going to try to connect with them through their website or find their phone number online at the very least, and connect with them that way, because I don't have time for the commute piece of it even, right? And then if I get there, the wrong person's there, they need me to call back anyway, right? So I think as a consumer, people are really pushing they want to connect with their businesses online, right? They've been showing us that for years, right? That's really kind of where we are heading. And so the worst thing that we can do as agencies is not meet them there, right? So people tell you how they want to be communicated with. You need to communicate back with them that way to really gain their trust and gain their business in the long run, right? So, and then the other piece that I was thinking about it with too is really in terms of prospects. The other piece is that your prospective new customers are going to want to compare you to the agency next door, right? That's just the reality of it. I think we can all have confidence that we are the best agency and strive to be that best agency, but they want to compare apples and apples, right? So they're going to pull up both of you guys online and look at you guys, right? They're not going to go all the way into your agency, into your brick and mortar, ask you a set of questions, meet with you for 30 minutes, and then go down the street and meet with somebody else for 30 minutes to determine what they want to do, right? It's a very, very, I should say a very small percentage of people will do that. There are some people that still like that, but that's pretty rare. And so being able to make sure that your online presence is surpassing your local competition as well, I think is a huge piece.
Yeah.
All that to say, your brick and mortar, like your existing customers are still going to come into your brick and mortar, right? You're still going to, your staff is going to work in the brick and mortar and be able to collaborate. Like there's still so many benefits for brick and mortar, but especially in terms of new prospects, I think we're looking much more online being the place that everyone at least starts.
And it's interesting because you've kind of anticipated and answered my next question, which is, talking about, for a startup business, how important, by startup, I mean like 5 years or younger, how crucial it is to have a website. And you've answered that
Yeah.
basically. And so let's take it to the next step and ask, if my website is critical, then what about my website is critical? And by that, I mean things like, dynamic design, and what is dynamic design and why is that important? And, so what does my website need to have in order to compete out there in the digital world?
Yeah. I mean, there are thousands of best practices for web design, right? And so, I mean, I think a website that looks professionally made, frankly, makes a big difference, right? To the naked eye and to a typical consumer, they can look between a professional website and a website that was made in house, right? There's a handful of different softwares that let you build your own website. You can usually pretty typically tell exactly which one was made by which. But I mean, I think about this a lot. This is the same kind of answer in terms of when I talk about logo design too, which I know we're not talking about, but it wraps up in there, right? But it's how you dress yourself, right? So let's say, okay, a different example, right? I'm going to my first day at a new job, right? Did I wear a t-shirt? Did I wear a nice suit, right? Or
Right.
a nice jacket? Did I put on a tie, right? Like it's how you put yourself out into the world. And so it's your website is telling everyone exactly who you are the second they click on it, right? So first of all, they have to get to your website. That's a whole other conversation. But once they get to your website, they click on that button and they want to know what agency X is all about, right? They have an impression of your agency within the first 3 seconds of opening that site, right? What are the colors? How crisp is it? What pictures on the front? Is it somebody smiling, right? When I walk into a brick and mortar, to go back to that, right? When I walk into a brick and mortar, I want to see somebody smiling at me when
Mhm.
I walk in the front door, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so why should there not be somebody smiling on your website, right? Like, and that's such a small example, but I think, it's that overall feeling, right? So that's your first impression being so critical and so important. So professional, crisp, clean. And then beyond that, making sure information is really easily accessible, right? They know what they're supposed to be doing on their website. There's clear call to actions. Your contact information is super visible. They know exactly what to do to get more information from you, how to get a quote from you, right? If it's just like, hey, yeah, we sell insurance and your phone number isn't on there and there's no form to fill out to get a quote, what are they supposed to do next, right? So making sure you're guiding them to that next step that you want them to take, right? Your website has to have a purpose, and the purpose is to connect that consumer to your agent, so that you can then sell them business, right? So every single piece and element on your website should be driving at that exact same purpose.
Right. And that makes all the sense in the world. And it, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking to myself, there are so many things in this day and age to consider when it comes to that website, that, to your point about a professional site versus a, let's say, non-professional site, it's critical. And
Mhm.
I say that because some things that you wouldn't expect the small business owner or the independent insurance agent to really stay abreast of would be, one, if somebody searches for my site through a Google search and it takes too long to render, I'm going to get dropped down to the
Mhm.
bottom of the search, right?
Oh, immediately. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are just things I'm thinking about now as we're talking, that you don't expect the independent agent or the insurance agent to have to think about, and that's why it's best to hand off the development of that site to a professional, because they will in fact take all these things into consideration.
100%. Yeah. And I don't want to sit here and make a code and color sales pitch, right? But I
Right.
obviously believe that very wholeheartedly because I work for a website design agency, right? But those are the pieces. And we'll see customers come in and come through our sales process at Code and Color who have been running their own site and they're so frustrated and they don't understand why it's not working and nobody's clicking on it and nobody can see it and they don't know, right? Like, and there's a wide variety of reasons why somebody might not find your site, right? But I mean, we started this conversation, Doug, talking about how, convoluted just the landscape is right
Yeah.
now. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone is online and there's so much information. And myself as a consumer, I'm trying to weed through information to find what I need and what I want to see online. Right. And so how does somebody even get to your website is another whole piece of it. Right.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about SEO, right, search engine optimization, right, those are some of the pieces that a professional, well-maintained site and well-created site is going to get you steps above your competition right off the bat, right? It's the absolute base level.
Right.
And the other piece, a lot of people think that it's super, super, super expensive to have their own custom site, right? And with some places it is. Code and Color was literally created for small independent agencies, right? And agencies who are just starting out, right? We have an entire program just focused on an SIAA like foundation agency, right? And the foundation program is, hey, this is what we can get you up and running with the absolute basics that you need for a minimal fee, right? And so that is what we are trying to be your partner and trying to grow with you as an agency. And so those are some of those things that like we've tried to combat because we get that it's hard and there's so many things that you need to spend your money on, right? And it's hard to dedicate that time. But if we're thinking about your website as a version of your brick and mortar, right? Would you not spend $100 a month on rent? Right. If I told you for an extra $100 on rent, you'd see another 1,000 people walk through your door every month, you'd do it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
It'd be dumb to not, right? And so when you start actually looking at the numbers, it makes, not only does it make sense, it doesn't make sense to not have one at this point, really, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm reminded of, I've been, I guess, in this business for a little while now. And I can remember having the conversation with member agents of a certain age, and would be saying to them, listen, you remember what you paid for Yellow Pages, right?
Yeah.
You could have a website for a lot less, and
Give me
you
your
can
Yellow Pages budget. I will take it.
exactly. You can. I mean, I used to do that too as a marketing director myself back in the day, and it's amazing to me how much convincing it took for a lot of people to understand that the website was far more cost effective, and you could still change it. Like when you had the Yellow Pages, you placed an ad, you had that for a year. Don't think about changing because it's not happening, right?
Oh
so
my gosh.
it's just funny to think back about how much actually websites have enabled small business owners and insurance agents in particular to just create a presence at a very reasonable cost. But my attitude has always been this: as we entered this world of online communication and websites, et cetera, I used to say to folks, get your website built and out there. As you've already alluded to, Kara, that's your online store, online storefront, right?
Start somewhere.
And then you can build the rest of what you want to do around it, which leads me to talking a little bit about social media. Right. Because social media, right, became much more the hot topic. Right. But I had people actually ask me, can I bypass having a website and just do social media? And I would say, no, you still want that website to be your hub. Thank you very much. And let your social media, bring traffic to it, right? That kind of thing. So could you talk for just a couple of minutes about, what you think makes sense in terms of a social media plan and how folks should be thinking about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go back to this other analogy, right? If your website is the smiling face that somebody sees when they walk into your brick and mortar, right?
Yeah.
Your social media should be what that person says to you, right? Like it is your voice with your customers, and it's a way to connect one-on-one and give some personality to your agency, right? Otherwise, all they know about your agency is your name, your logo, and you had somebody design a really cool website for you, right? But who are you, right? Like why should I buy my insurance here versus down the street? Like what are you doing for me? And so having that ability to connect with your existing customers, to exactly connect with your prospects is huge, right? The other thing that is happening with social media is it's giving you a place, it's giving your customers and your prospects a way to know that you are active online versus, yes, I made that website and I put it up there and I haven't touched it in 3 years, right?
Yeah.
That's also not great. You know, you need to be keeping things fresh and up to date so that they know when they're looking at your website and that they're getting actual up to date information, that it's not outdated, right? That, you
Yeah.
know, their staff listing page has the right phone numbers routed to the right people when I need to make a call, right? Like that's important for somebody using your website. One of the easiest ways for them to feel confident your website is up to date, all your information is up to date, is having up to date social media, right? They posted 3 days ago, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
important versus, I mean, when's the last time you went on somebody's Facebook page and like, last time they posted was in 2018. I assume they're out of business.
Right.
I won't call that company. I just wholeheartedly assume they're out of business.
Yeah.
And they might not be at all, right? And so, you know, it's part of that, just, you know, that bare minimum regular posting, I think is, for me, is essential, in addition to having your website, right?
Yeah.
There are other things that can happen with social media is actually getting new prospects to your site, right? It's driving that traffic to your site, having people share content, right? And then that's going to take us into a whole, I don't know if you want to go into the whole rabbit hole that is content marketing, right? But actually creating helpful and good content and putting it out on your social media. Those are the things that are going to get shared. Those are the things that are going to get high engagement. That's going to get you bumped up in all of these social media algorithms, right? So, you know, content marketing sounds super scary, and trying to think of what to talk about and what content to put out there is really hard. I would say Google it, right? It's very easy. One of the things I tell our customers to do a handful of times is, you know, I'm like, Google, you know, your industry, Google insurance. Um, in the Google search results, they are going to have, you know, other people also asked, right? That's a section.
Hmm.
Keep clicking more, 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 more. Go down and answer every single one of those questions, right?
Yeah.
Start answering those questions. People have those questions, clearly, because Google thinks that's the most common question about the insurance industry. Answer it, right? Put your phone on a selfie mode, take a little video of you explaining the answer to that question, and put it out on your Facebook and on your Instagrams and on your LinkedIn's, right? And every other platform that you have, right? It'll take, you know, less than a minute, less than 5 if you're not super tech savvy even, right? Like I'll
Right.
spot you an extra 4 minutes, but like it's pretty, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be super crisp. That doesn't have to be super polished in the same way your website does. Your social media can feel really connected, right? And then just keep people up to date with what's going on in your office, right? Like post about, you know, oh, it's, you know, we had a luncheon today, or, you know, hey, we had a big meeting, or we all went out for putt-putt, and, you know, it's our Christmas party, and, oh, it's, you know, it's Sally's birthday, right? Like just share what's going on in your office, right? Like people want to buy from real people and they want to buy from their local agency. Otherwise, they wouldn't be looking at any of your content anyway, right? So
Yeah.
if you know, supporting local businesses and being connected to your local community, especially through your insurance agency, is important to you as a consumer, then you want to know your agents, right? Like that's the leg up that an independent small agency has over these big giants in the industry, right? Is that
Right.
we are real people. We are next to you in the grocery store. We sit behind you at church, right? You know, I'm the table next to you at the local diner, right? Like those are the pieces that people will connect with. So
Yeah.
all in
Yeah.
all, right, social media is who you are. It is a way for you to share who you are and what you do and how you take care of your customers, right? So it can only be more utilized, right? But completely ignoring it doesn't help anybody either, right?
Right.
It's too easy to not.
Yeah. So that gives me two thoughts or questions to ask you. The first one would be in your role today, and based on the clients that you see and interact with, is there a preferred platform in terms of social media for insurance agents today? Meaning, should they be on LinkedIn, Facebook,
Mhm.
Instagram? What should they be on?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the absolute bare minimum, you have to be on Facebook. That's what I always tell people to start with. It is simple, it is straightforward. It's where a lot of your target audience is still going to live, and that'll change obviously over the years. But right now, Facebook still is king. I think keeping up to date with LinkedIn is helpful. LinkedIn is going to be more used for B2B stuff. So if you're selling and you focus a lot on commercial insurance, keeping up to date on LinkedIn is also helpful. Instagram, I can go either way on Instagram, especially as a business like this and in this industry. It never hurts. But if you're trying to limit, I would keep on Facebook and LinkedIn. The other thing that I always tell people, right, is there are either cheap or very free posting softwares, right? So you can go and actually find a software that lets you make one post and they will put it on to all of those platforms for you,
Right.
so that you don't have to pick, right? You're doing the same amount of work, and it's just pushing out to all of those platforms. So that is usually where I lean, is use a posting platform and a posting software to be able to do that, so that you don't have to pick. But if you're going to pick, obviously I think Facebook is going to be number one, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know about unfortunately, but I will say this. I do believe that folks need to understand that things can change.
Yes.
In that even in terms of which platform is the flavor of the day or
Mhm.
the week or the year. I can remember a time when they used to say Facebook is for the people you know and Twitter is for the people you want
Mhm.
to know. And I can tell you that has changed a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
over the last decade or whatever period of time it is.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
even right, like, I mean, right now, like, obviously the big new, the big new platform is TikTok, right? And,
yeah,
I'm not telling people to get onto TikTok yet, but very, very quickly, the majority of TikTok users, and I can't say all of them because
yeah,
I'm on TikTok and I am not in Gen Z, but there's a lot of Gen Z in TikTok, right? And we're gonna have to start selling insurance to Gen Z really, really soon. We already do, right? To be
yeah,
frank,
yeah,
right?
yep,
But like that group, and we can't just ignore that that's how that generation wants to be communicated with and marketed to, because they're going to have significant buying power in our industry, really, really, really soon, right? Like they all have cars, they're buying houses, right? They're going to start opening businesses in the next couple of years, right? And do you want them to buy insurance from your agency, or do you want them, to find some big giant that does technology better than us, right? So
right.
how do we compete? I mean, that'll be a huge piece of the market shift that's coming in the next 5 to 10 years, is right, just Gen Z and content minded people are going to be leading industries, and
Right.
we can't just not talk to them because we don't know how to, right? That
Mhm.
doesn't work for us and our agencies.
No, no, it doesn't. And so one other thing I do have to ask you, do you see any potential pitfalls or pitfalls that people should watch out for as it pertains to social media?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest pitfall, I think, is always when you put yourself out there. There's gonna be times where people talk back, right? It's not a one-way conversation. Social media, it is a two-way conversation.
Yep.
So I think one of the biggest pitfalls is not listening to the people on your site and
Mm,
interacting with your brand.
yep.
So making sure that you are obviously reading comments, getting back to people on messages and things like that. And there will be times, I mean, it's happened more times than I would love to count, but like, people, if they've got a gripe with a business, they go to social media and they
Yeah.
start spreading it, right? And so how you respond to that, I think, is really important. So don't just completely ignore it. Right? You need to have some kind of a response. This is, we've heard you. I always try to take that conversation off of social media. 9 times out of 10 is the best way to do it. Is respond, show that you've understood and that you've seen and read and heard the comment, and try to contact that person in different channels to be able to resolve issues. Um, Whatever you do, don't get into a social media fight with somebody. It is just a kiss of death, truly, honestly.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
never looks good for anybody involved, and almost always looks worse on the brand who is in the fight, right? So,
Yeah.
rise above. People will be upset, right? You have to be able to take that, and run with it, right?
Yeah.
There is nobody who reads one disgruntled employee or one disgruntled customer review or note online and goes, "Oh, they must be totally right," right? We've all watched people just kind of lose it, right? And so, like, like everyone understands that they're voicing a frustration,
Yeah.
and they know there's two sides to every story. So be professional, stay steadfast in it. Hear the complaint, try to take it offline, is usually my best advice there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing that I'm reminded of as you said that is I I've written a number of articles over time, and when I've talked about social media or about even in communicating with clients and potential clients is try to avoid we're kind of a fractured society these days, if you will, culturally. It's like try to avoid making that political statement. I guess I would never tell someone not to make a political statement, but at least make it knowingly and knowing what the potential impact is for it. right? Or as a result
And
of
be
it.
ready for it, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't want to be ready for it, just don't make the comment, right?
Right. Yeah.
100%, yeah, because
Yeah.
it will have backlash, right? And I mean, the other piece about digital, right, is it doesn't go away, and so if you've put it out there, it's always out there, and we can always find it.
Yeah.
And so some people think like, well, I put that out there, but it didn't go well, and then I deleted it, so it's fine now. Like it's still there, right? And so that's the piece of just being online in general that is difficult, and it just that the weight of that need to be known, I guess, right?
Right. Right. So, I this is unbelievable. Obviously, we're actually running out of time, and there
I
is.
feel like we just started, Doug.
Well, that's just it, right? So, what the heck?
I
So you'll have to
learned about
promise.
this stuff, honestly.
Well, you'll have to promise that you'll come on again because we do
Of
have
course.
other things to cover, I think.
Yes.
But before we do close it down or end the podcast, let me ask you: do you have anything that you'd like to impart to the listeners that as a goodbye that they could take away, or are you feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, definitely. I think so. The one thing that I know I wanted to touch on, we didn't quite get to, so I'll just scratch the surface very lightly on it.
sure.
Is just your Google profile itself. And so there's something called a Google My Business page. So if you don't know what that is, when somebody actually types your business name into Google, there's usually a box that pops up on like the right hand side of your screen. Try it with any business right now. You'll see what I mean. There is a way to edit all of that information. So make sure that information is up to date. So that in addition to your website is going to be super critical for people getting into contact with you, right? A lot of people are using the internet to, one, get to know you, but then two, to actually get in touch with you and get into contact with you, right? They don't have your agency's number saved in their phone. I guarantee it, right? They Google it every single time and hit the button and call you that way. So that is my biggest thing. So make sure your Google My Business is correct and up to date, and that you yourself manage that account. Code and Color has a blog that explains how to do that, or you can call me and I'll get you all set up on your Google My Business if you're having trouble, because that is the super low lying fruit, and that's totally free with Google. So make sure you have that, and then yes, have a website. Make sure your website and your branding is all on par and up to the task, right? You are competing with your competition, and unfortunately, more than that, you're competing with people who have 40 people in their marketing department at these big insurance companies, right? And so you have something that they don't have. Figure out what that is, communicate that well and concisely and professionally, and you're going to be doing way better than I think you're going to be doing. So all that to say, in the meantime, if it sounds stressful, if it's overwhelming, give us a call. That is what we're here for, is to make it not stressful and not confusing. Like I said, it should be pretty straightforward just to get those couple of things in place, and then you'll be off to a good start from there.
Terrific. Thank you, Kara, for joining me today. This has really been
having me, Doug.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I want to remind our guests that you are our guest has been Kara Shottis from marketing director, from Code and Color, and this has been a great conversation. Been very very fluid, and I really do hope that you'll be willing to join us again. I want to thank our listeners, and I want to thank you for participating in Insurance Agents Talk Shop. Let folks know that I'm Doug Coombs, Chief Marketing Officer at SIAA. To learn more about SIAA, the Agent Alliance, please visit SIAA.com. And Kara, thank you once again.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
All right, take care now.